Good evening, everyone in the audience. It is with great pleasure and honor that I welcome you all today to this webinar on navigating the Cambridge Early Years journey together. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from an esteemed educationist, a visionary leader, and the vice principal of DPS International School, Gauri Bhargava. With over 24 years of experience in the field of education, Ms. Bhargava has dedicated her career to shaping the minds of young learners and guiding them towards a brighter future. As a founder teacher of DPS International School, which offers the esteemed Cambridge International Curriculum, her insights are going to be invaluable to all of us. Ms. Bhargava firmly believes that education is not just confined to the walls of a classroom, but extends to every aspect of our lives. Her passion for teaching and her commitment for nurturing the next generation of leaders is truly commendable. Throughout her journey, Ms. Bhargava has traveled abroad and gained recognition from various educational bodies across the world, further enriching her knowledge and expertise in the field of education. Today, we have the opportunity to delve into Mrs. Bhargava's wealth of experience as she shares insights into the Cambridge Early Years program. Without further ado, let me extend a warm welcome to Gauri Bhargava and express our gratitude for her willingness to share her expertise with us today. Thank you so much, Ms. Gauri, and a warm welcome. Namaste. So, some housekeeping rules for the audience. If you have any questions for Ms. Gauri or for us, you may put it in the chat box or the Q&A section. We'll be more than happy to answer them. So let's get started with the webinar today. So what I'm going to do is, Ms. Gauri, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions which are pertinent from the lens of parents who are going to admit their children into a Cambridge Early Years School or any other preschool for that sake. So my first question to you is, could you shed some light on the fundamental differences between the Cambridge Early Years program and the other early childhood programs which we have in our country? What is the difference between the two according to you?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Akash, for that introduction. We've been doing at DPS, we've been offering the Cambridge program for 20 years, as Akash has said. Now, if I have to say in a very crisp way, what is the difference between other Cambridge earlier programs and Cambridge? I would say the Cambridge Early Years program at a very young age develops a sense of emotional intelligence in children, self-regulation. It complements the children's experiences. That means they learn from the immediate environment they are in. They also get involved in their learning. So you will say, now that's too big for a child of 3, but that I will tell you by examples a little later how that happens. So when the children are involved in their learning at a young age, it gives rise to the five, as we call them, the benchmarks, or as we call them, the importance of a Cambridge learner, which is they become responsible, they become innovative, they become confident, they become engaged with their work, and above all, they reflect. The other thing that Cambridge Early Years does, which is very important, is actually enhance the children's learning, which kinds of smooths the transition of children of early years to primary. So, and in fact, the other thing which stands out for me, especially when we are in India and we have various languages and we have children who come from different languages, this curriculum at the age 3 onwards gives you the opportunity to, the communication language course offers the ability, different ability children are taken care of. So we have a concept of ESL language, which is English as a second language, and FLE, which is first language learners English. So at age 3, they have two courses that run, fitting and accommodating the early years children accordingly. So for me, that is something that stands out for Cambridge Early Years program.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gauri. That was a very crisp and a clear answer to demarcate the difference between what happens in a Cambridge early years classroom and the other programs which take place in our country, offering different kinds of preschool education. So on the basis of that, my next question to you is, how does the Cambridge Early Years program prepare the children for the transition? You mentioned it prepares them for the primary education. So can you dive a little deeper into it and help us know how does it prepare the students for the primary and the secondary years education? Like, how do you think the progression happens? Is it seamless or are there any challenges for students?
So, it is seamless because DPS International is a Cambridge pathway school. So that means we run the entire Cambridge program from age 3 to 18. But as we see it, one, the Cambridge plan planned out by the drafters of the curriculum shows a very seamless progression grid right from age 3 to going all the way to age 18. So it is in a thought of program which is not fragmented. So that is the plus point when you execute such kind of a curriculum. So that's the base that we give that our teachers have. The other thing I want to say, how the children transit is like, for example, we do a lot of a lot of provision is made in the early years for children to initiate their own learning. So we have something called a continuous provision corners. Okay, that could be a reading corner, a maths corner, an art corner, a writing material corner. So what the teachers does is that she prepares these areas every week according to the plan where the children explore. And why I'm saying child initiated learning, because the child has that freedom to explore what he or she may want to at that time or is ready. Like play-based learning, that is a part of this continuous provision. And it's like a guided play. If I can say, it's more like a guided play, which helps the children to understand that they have to be a part of their learning. That also helps them in their transition. The other thing that the children learn are skills. Now, the Cambridge program is not about content completion or a curriculum completion or certain topics have to be done in certain class. It is based on the aspect that skills are more important than the content. If you have the skill of, as we say, English, let me take English for an example. We have 4 skills in English, okay? Usually people just say, oh, reading and writing, and that's over. It's not that. It is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So all these 4 skills are very important for a children to be a good English student or a learner. So in early childhood, we give the children the opportunity to explore all these skills. So for example, there's a print-rich environment, okay? Yes, the children see in circle time, they see words. We don't tell them to read them. They're just there. So the children automatically absorb that word from the environment. So that's what I mean by print-rich environment. And when the children reach the age, maybe by EY3 or grade 1, when they start reading small little story books, automatically, regardless of phonetics or any kind of English grammar sequence, the children read better of this print-rich requirement. So that's one. The other is listening. At a very young age, again, we give the children the opportunity to listen vocabularies in maybe in a story form, in a poem form, and repeat it. So what happens in that process of memory and repetition, the children again build on their vocab. Then comes the model reading. So the children, we have picture books in the program are designed and we give them to the children. So, they sit in the reading corner, they're kind of playing like the teacher or the mother and they try to read the book, flip the book. So, that also helps when they start to read. As for writing, we early year 1 especially does not emphasize too much on writing because they're developing in their fine motor skills. And a lot of play is encouraged in EY1 to develop the fine motor skill. And when in EY2 the children start to do formal writing, they do a form of documentation. Okay, we have something called we call it the scribe. For early children, we call the teachers as scribes. So where the child tells what he or she is feeling, and he and she can see the teacher write some words to, express their feelings. So the child at a very young age learns documentation. So that is how the four skills of English are developed. The other thing that we develop in the early years is observation. You all know, or if you don't know, then I must tell you that Cambridge um, lays a lot of emphasis on application. Every curriculum has different emphasis. Many curriculums emphasize on content, whereas some emphasize on research. But Cambridge takes content also and research also, and they put a third emphasis here, which is application. So you'll say, how can children use application when they're small? I'll give you an example. I think that will help you to understand when we say that the children start observing and critical thinking comes to play. So, for example, in age 4 class, which is EY2, we had an activity which I witnessed was we were doing floating and sinking, which is a typical activity for all schools to take up. But what I noticed here in the curriculum was that where in EY1, when the floating and sinking was picked up, the teacher was only had given them lots of objects of different weights, and she just made them observe which one is sinking, which one is floating, then gave a whole set of box for the children to explore themselves. And that was the only limit of floating and sinking. Now, when they reached EY2, the same topic was picked up again. And what did they do this time? They gave each child, they made a circle and they sat down with a little tub of water and their objects to be thrown in the water. But each child had a worksheet and had a sticker sheet, which was a red and a green sticker. So the teacher picked up one item and said, do you think this will float or this will sink? So they had a red for a thing and a green for another purpose. So the child would predict at such a young age, because of exploration that they had done in EY1, they would predict if it would float or sink. So if it would float, they would put a green in the sticker. And if they thought it would sink, they would put a red sticker. So that was in the first column. And then the teacher dropped the item. And then the children observed. When they observed, in the next column, they put the right sticker, which is the conclusion. So in a very play way method, we taught the children how to critically think, predict, observe, understand that there's a conclusion, also to understand that they might meet a different answer. The beauty of Cambridge early years is that there's no right and wrong answer in this curriculum. We encourage children to just express. For example, when there's circle time and we're talking about things and they give an answer or whatever, there's a discussion going on, they give the answer. We'll say, oh, very good. You think like that. That's very good. And we document it. And the children just develop this idea that they can talk, they can express, they can say their opinions and they're being heard. So when I say emotional intelligence, can you see how it leads to that in this certain setup? And that helps the children a lot, again, to get ready for primary, because primary is all about application, more of application about their content. So this teaches them that whatever you know of the topic, even if you may not know if it's a right answer or wrong answer, say it, express it, so the teacher would know what you're thinking. So I would say in this type of just touching on few topics and ways, that helps the early year children transit to primary program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Gauri. That was quite a detailed answer, and I really love the example which you gave of floating and sinking. Until and unless children don't engage in the learning process, the question is, how are they even learning? And how do we know as adults, as teachers, that the students are learning? And I can see one of the parent has posted a comment in the chat box. There is no by-hearting, only practicality in Cambridge. And that's exactly what we do. We don't stress on rote learning. We rather learn from the bottom of your heart so that you remember it to apply. And on this, I remember one of the quotes which we educators use a lot, that is, tell me and I forget, teach me, I may remember, involve me and I learn. And you
Yes.
gave such beautiful examples to lay the foundation on this quote itself. So, furthermore, on this, Ms. Gauri, a question from a parent, okay? What kind of content do the students learn? Do they have any subject areas in early years? Like
Yes. So
just a
all,
kind of an intriguing question. Yeah.
yeah, I understand that, uh, we Indians always have this thing, subjects kya padha raha hai? What is the subjects that are going to be taught or whatever. So Cambridge is a structured program. Fluid in its nature, that everything is interdisciplinary. It is in some way where topics are picked up and they are interdisciplinary, but it's broadly divided into 6 areas. So communication, language, and literacy being the first area, mathematics being the second area. Then we have UW, which is understanding the world. Remember, I told you about learning from the immediate environment. No, I'm just going to divert a little bit from here because I want to say why it's important to know your world. Um, Children live in their present, okay? They live in their environment. So you have to relate their learning to their environment or they will not understand it because they don't, fantasy and, facts and figures come way ahead when they grow up. But when they're children, if they see something in their environment, they will understand it better. Their understanding would be better. So that is why understanding of the world. And then they have something which is called the personal, social, emotional development. And then we have the creatives, which are the music, the art, and also dance is a part of it. And so is physical. Last development area is the physical development area. So where we look after the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills, and those are linked with our subject, which is understanding of the world.
Thank you so much. That was quite clear that there are 6 subject areas. So students do have some structure, but then there is a lot of opportunity for play-based learning, which helps the learners to learn the concepts behind it rather than just focusing on the content. And so that links me to one important question again, Ms. Gauri, that when we consider a program like this, which is so much on play-based approach, and I think it's accredited around the world that children in the age group of 3 to 6 years old learn better when they are engaged in the learning process, when they're actively involved in the learning process. How do you integrate the conventional educational materials which we had, like books or notebooks or the other materials which we studied from when
Yeah.
we were kids? How do you integrate those materials and the modern ways of teaching and learning together to foster a harmonious blend of innovation and tradition together?
Okay, so I want to go back to what you said, Akash, first, that you learn better when you do it. So while I'm talking about how the children are learning things in a playway method, I just told you an example where documentation or some kind of analysis was done on a worksheet in the sinking and floating. And can I tell you something? The curriculum, the way it's structured, when the child is ready, age appropriately, they will write. Okay. So we do have books which are sticker books. Sometimes are sticker books which are aligned to the subjects. Sometimes they are books which will have an attachment, a link to an audio which the children hear. There are also the books are used as a conclusion. They are not used as the base of understanding. The understanding comes from the playway method. The understanding comes from them doing things. But yes, books are required because, like I said, some are just sticker books. For example, um, they observed their class today. They took a walk in the school. All right. There was one topic which says, know your school or know your class. Then they had a sticker activity in the book which says, okay, where will the books go? So there's a picture of the bookshelf, which is like a reading corner. And the children took out that sticker and put it in this bookshelf, on the bookshelf. So that's what I mean. It's not the learning that comes from the book. They are more assisting the understanding and to ensure that the child has understood the concept, either by recap sometime by sheet. So they're all a part of it. So I won't say that we completely let go of the books, but it enhances learning. That's right. It's a balance between play. Sometimes books are also used as assessment and
Mm-hmm.
just to see. So that's it. It's just a conclusion. They're not a part that we have to have books. It's not necessary.
Okay. Okay. So, thank you so much, Miss Gauri. So that links to one of my question and one of the questions which a parent has asked in the chat box as well. So I remember listening to this that the Cambridge Early Years program is based on certain learning statements, which are basically the developmental milestones that are to be achieved at certain age group. And
Right.
early years 1, early years 2, and early years 3, which is basically for 3 to 4 year old, 4 to 5 year old, and 5 to 6 year old are the three age groups. Now, since these are developmentally appropriate milestones, which are linked to the learning statements, what if a student who enters the class at the age of 5, that is, the student starts at EY 3 and has not done EY 1 or EY 2 from Cambridge school, will the student be able to cope with the learning? Will there be any gap? What are your takes on that?
So, something which I've experienced because being the head of Cambridge early years in primary, you have to understand something, Akash, that if the child is not in our school, they are in some other school. The academic curve is continuing, the learning is happening. It may not happen in the same approach which Cambridge early years has. So, whenever children like this transfer from other schools or other countries into, because even countries have different curriculum levels, we always have the, again, like I said, if there's a progression grid, remember I talked about how the entire school curriculum is in a progression grid. So if you are, for example, if you're in the progression grid of class 1, but you might be in learning and speaking at class 1 level, but reading and writing you may be at the kindergarten level. So what we do is that while the children go ahead with that age appropriate skill, we, with the help of the parents and sometimes giving that opportunities in school on a one-to-one, we make them in their own space come up to the level. There's no, it's not, again, like I said, there's no rigidity. There's no rigidness that you have to be, if you enter grade 1, you have to know tuck, 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 these things. There's no topics. So there's no tuck, tuck, tuck. It's only the skill building. You may have a vocab of 50 while another friend of yours has a vocab of 75. Doesn't mean that you don't know how to read. It's just that you will get up to the level. So everything is very graded. When graded, I mean the levels of so well graded that we understand, okay, a child who's coming into our curriculum is coming at this level. If we give him these more experiences with the curriculum, they will come up to the average level. So the progression grid helps us to find the child's placement and then bring them up to the expectations, if there are any, of the curriculum.
Thank you so much. That was quite an elaborative answer. And I think that addresses a lot of questions in the chat box, where if the student has not come from a Cambridge school or probably has not studied the Cambridge international curriculum in the past, and the student enters the Cambridge class at certain age, be it in the early years or when the student goes to primary or lower secondary as well, there is no major gap, because as Ms. Gauri clearly mentioned, there is an academic curve which was already happening, and it's more of blending it from what the child has learned previously and what the child is going to learn further. And Cambridge has this progression grids, which are basically the transition documents which every Cambridge school gets, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Gauri.
They're,
So the
they're a
teachers are
part of the
quite
support hub,
uh,
which is the teacher
uh,
resource. Can I just add
yes.
one more thing? I
Okay.
mentioned this earlier also.
Yes, yes, please.
The
Please. Yeah.
flexibility of the program. Remember, I talked about ESL and FLE. So, for example, I have a lot of international children who are coming from various countries whose English is not their first language. So, I have an ESL teacher in my school. So, she kind of runs the ESL program for these children, where their learning pace of English may not be the same, the curve may not be the same as the FLE, but they're still learning at a certain level of English. So that
All
flexibility,
right.
the curriculum gives us also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And now this is all leading up towards a strong academic start for any child, because the academic journey is going to be demanding a lot of things as the child moves towards primary, lower secondary, and higher education. So one suggestion, okay, from your end, since you have involved in this age group for the last so many years, I would say, and you must have come across hundreds and thousands of parents with variety of queries. But one question, okay, from the parent perspective is, uh, could you offer some practical strategies or insights with regards to how can parents actively support their child's learning at home while
Yeah.
aligning with the principles of Cambridge Early Years program?
Okay,
Because
so I'll tell
school
you
wants to do
something.
it in one way and parents might not know
Want
that.
to
So
do
how
it
can
another.
we bridge that gap? Yes.
Yeah. And you know what happens is that we are all from more or less 80 to 90% of us are all educated in the Indian national system. So we don't understand the application approach. Um, okay, I'll give you an example again. I think that will help you clear. First of all, Cambridge Early Years program gives a lot of home link support. Okay. That means every unit which is addressed in school, and there the books also come into play. They are books which are kind of designed and will have a little link or a little note at the bottom what parents can do at home. So that is also why we use the traditional books. But for example, my children just last week had this whole exploration of sensory, right? And where they kind of did different surfaces, different feel, touch, everything. So we sent a little note which is defined in the curriculum that take your child to the park, okay, and take off their shoes, make them walk on the grass, okay. Ask them the questions, which is the specific answers, you know, like soft, little edgy, little not so soft. It's pokey, you know, words that we used in the school for helping them understand what kind of surface it was. We send the same kind of words back home. So when they walk on the grass, you ask them questions. When you ask them questions, the children will recall either the word or will give their own little sentence. You know, this is poking me, this is ouch, as they say, pokey is. So that kind of thing. And then we'll also say, okay, let them smell the flowers, let them smell the spices at home. And so that kind of support is given to the parents. And also, when you ask such leading questions, you are giving a voice to the children's feelings. So, you know, you understand, you know, when we see age 3, age 4, or age 5, or we all as adults feel, oh, they're still babies. Okay. But they're not babies. Can I tell you something? The power of understanding age appropriately is very strong in young children because they're still learning from the environment. They're absorbing. So when you are in this stage where you're still in the learning mode from your environment and absorbing, you pick up things faster. And that's where the parent role comes, where, you know, you don't say, when children ask you a question, don't give them an answer which is not real. Give them an answer age appropriately what is required of that topic, helping them understand what they are thinking, are they correct, helping them understand that what they said, was it correct. I'm using correct and wrong because that's how children understand, right? So it's very important for parents, and that's what how we support through the Cambridge program parents to understand is what's happening in school. And we're not giving you pages to complete, but we ask you to do these little things like walking in the park, which is not so hard and not so taxing also, but it gives you an insight into your child's understanding and learning in school.
That's really useful that Cambridge gives a kind of a handy toolkit to the parents as well, so that the parents do not deviate in terms of what we usually call as pedagogy or the
Yeah.
way with which the learners learn. And they basically become a co-equal partner with the school and do the things as per their accord at home setting, and let the school do what can be done in the school, so that together they shape the child for a better, I would say, learning journey ahead. So that brings me to my question on, have you received, and I'm sure you must have, but could you share some of those testimonials or the success stories from the parents, uh, which started with you in the early years and now the students have moved into the primary classes? What kind of a transformative journey or the impactful journey they have had? Like, I'm sure a lot of parents in the audience would like to know that.
So I'll tell you something that stands out for me every year. Every year when parents come for open day and parent open house, something which at the end of the year or beginning of the year, we have a lot of sit-in as parents come to watch their children on various aspects. And the early year program supports confidence. The developers, like I said, are really keyed on what's important at what age. So confidence is one that I get a lot, that the children are more vocal, expressive. Even they might not know the right vocab, they do tend to speak. And I also see the language development, like I said, is expression. Observation, things like parents come and tell me. I remember specifically this one parent who came to me, and it was very funny. The child was an out of box thinker. Okay. And unfortunately, because he was an out of box thinker, he was not able to kind of fall in line with the other curriculum which is being offered. So, the mother was really struggling, and she came to our school because she thought there was a small class size and everything. And we observed the child and we gave him a lot of experience, a lot of exploration. And we realized that this was the way the child learned. And because it is skill building, this curriculum, the parent herself realized that my child actually learns like this. He may not learn by content or may not learn by memorizing. He learned because he listened to me, or he heard me read, or he heard me speak, or he observed me doing this in the kitchen. So these are the things that the parent came to tell me, that I found another side to my child. I found another angle of learning, as they call it, of my child. So for me, I think that's the success story of Cambridge Early Years, is that there is no structure, yet there is a structure. There is flexibility. There is, each child finds his or her niche in the curriculum. And there is, we kind of create that space for them, not leading by front, but kind of nudging them into their corners by giving them various experiences through the curriculum.
Lovely. And I'm sure learning at DPS International, especially in the early years segment, would be fun, because with all the ideas and all the strategies which you shared, I could actually see that tinkle in your eye when you were sharing all these experiences, that it is so much well experienced by you, that all the experiences are, I would say, candidly shared with the audience, with the parents who are with us today. So my questions are done, Miss Gauri, but I have
Thank
got a
you.
couple of, I would say, really active parents in the group who have asked a couple of questions. A lot of them I have tried to rephrase in my questions and I've asked them. But then there are a couple of questions which I want you to answer separately. So
Sure.
one is, how will kids be transitioned when school has transitioned to Cambridge in grade one? So, if I'm not mistaken, I think if the child has not done early years, if the child directly goes to grade one, which is Cambridge, will it be possible for a child to cope with the curriculum?
Yes, it will. Again, like I said, there is no concept building. It's a skill building. So I have seen transition. It may take some time because each child is at her or his own pace. But in a matter of few weeks, if the child is comfortable, they automatically start learning. I had this child, Albi, who came into prep. okay, and they'd come from international, and he had never picked up a pencil to write, okay. But initially, before the summer break, we told the mother, do a lot of fine motor skills. We never told her to pick up the pen and the paper and make him do ABCD writing. We just did do fine motor skills, build the pincer grip. When he came back in July, because his pincer grip had been formed by then, he just took on to writing. So it's sometimes you just have to edit the teaching or the teaching in a very small twist, and it gives you the desired result. So I don't think there is too much of a curriculum gap. I mean, ability, they are children of different abilities. But if you say an average child coming from another curriculum should not feel, I'm going to use the word stress, of transiting to a Cambridge program.
Okay. Another question is, you can give a short and a crisp answer because we have got a couple of questions more.
Sure.
How can we involve more of reading in young learners? And another question to that element is also around how can we develop social emotional learning in young learners? So I would appreciate if you can link reading and social emotional learning together and give our parents one nice
Okay,
practice.
so first is keep them away from the screen. Keep them away from the digital device, because that's the first step of making them readers. Okay. The other step is that you should role model. You should role model rather than give them the cartoon to watch or the tablet to watch while they're eating. Read them a story while they eat. Role modeling is very, very important. If you role model, give them the concept of using a book when they're bored. Allow your children to get bored sometimes. Okay. When your children, we are so into jumping and helping our children when they're bored. You know, if you leave them to be bored, they'll roam around their room, and they might, just because you role model reading so much, just pick up a book. So reading can be developed. Give them a print-rich environment. You know, when you know your children know a certain vocab, you know, so 70 words, you know, the 70 words they know. When you're out driving or when you're out traveling and you know your child will recognize that one word in that board, tell them, darling, can you read that? And once when they read, they gain the confidence. They'll read that word and you'll say, that's correct. And they will get that confidence to read more, because, you know, children like to please us. Yeah. They want to hear that good girl, that's excellent, or good boy. So that is one. Encourage them not to read books. Encourage them to read, again, you know, read at a level. So like, you know, what I'm telling you about the progression grid, don't expect them to pick up any book. Start with sentences. Start with first recognizing words, like I said, then go down to reading sentences, then go up to reading small books, you know, more 1-2 letter books, and then go up to reading more intense texts, you know. So I would suggest, and create an environment where it is print rich. That's all. So that's the first, is to encourage them not, and give them a little treats when they read a certain. So we have this thing called the reading race things. You know, you can do it at home. Read together sometimes. Who can read 5 books in 1 month, or who can read 5 books in 2 months, and give them a little, you know, acknowledgement of that. That's all. I mean, and just that's encourages them. Whole idea is to motivate them. And don't give them books. You know, sometimes what we do with children when they get a certain, we bring magazines. We tell them, okay, now find the word in the newspaper. So what they realize in this playway method, as the Cambridge earlier program suggests, playway, we give them environment that are print rich and they can read that. So, you know, one day you will find your child sitting at the breakfast table and looking at your newspaper and saying, oh, that's the, you know, and that's it. You know that he's ready to read. And you just have to create an environment where he can do more reading.
Lovely. So coming from that, there is one question which a parent has asked about how will the Cambridge early years or this style of education primarily cater to the requirements of the NCERT syllabus in the higher grades. Like uh, their daughter is quite young right now, but of course it's a genuine concern of a parent, which any Indian parent would feel like in the higher grades when the child goes towards the high stake examinations, how will Cambridge prepare them for those? Can you give a short response to that?
Yeah, so I've also been a teacher of middle school and senior school. And can I tell you, Cambridge is a well accepted curriculum in India. Okay. We have the accreditation from AIU that they will accept a Cambridge certificate at par level to any CBSE child. That's one thing. I'll answer the question which is topmost in all the parents' mind is what about the competitive exams? Because our Indian national curriculum kind of prepares content-wise our children to take the competitive exams. So I'll tell you a personal experience which one of my child had told me when he came back to visit me in school. He had got through a very prestigious engineering college, but he also got Cambridge, so he forego his seat in that college and went to Cambridge. But when I asked him, so what happened? What was your challenge? What was your, what did you feel that in a way you had to do a little bit more? And he told me something in a nutshell, which I'm going to tell you. He says, ma'am, all my peer group from other curriculums also go to these tutorial classes, and I also went. But what happened is that though my peer group had covered all the content in, content as in the topics, they didn't know application. So remember, I told you at a very young age, we make our early year children critical thinkers. Okay, they start to think as to why it happened, what is the reason. So that means application. So when my student said, and ma'am, I may not have done all the, say, presumed 20 topics, I may have done 12, but I knew in totality the application and the content of those 12 topics. So when I went to those extra tutorial classes, I did the balance 8 topics of content and application. So can I tell you something? And I'm going to ask you this. When I said children do a lot of thinking, speaking, talking in the early years, what is that? That's group discussion. You're going to go, your child is going to apply to college now, CUET is come, and they apply. Interview is a very important element in your college admissions. And at the age 3, Cambridge early year program teaches you to give your opinions. Like something, a very small thing. When we do circle time and we ask children, what did you do on your weekend? Now, children won't understand this. But we give them one example. I'd say, okay, Gauri ma'am, I went to my Nani's house. I give my first example. The children understand what that question means. And then they start from the examples of their peer learning also, they start to give answers of what they did in the weekend. Again, what are you doing? You're giving them the opportunity to reflect on the experience of the past 2 days to say it. So again, reflection and analysis, all these are skills that we offer in the Cambridge program, be it early years, primary, lower secondary, even in the higher school. There is no just definition and answer. There is always a case study which ask you to apply the principles of that subject. So I would say it actually gives your children an edge. This program provides your children with an edge where they are not rote learners or stereotype learners. They are actually thinking learners. So I think that my children, who wherever they've gone in these 20 years of me being a teacher with DPSI, I've always learned that they had a smooth transition into college life.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gauri. So undoubtedly clear that these years are basically the years of brain building exercise, as I remember we teachers believe in. And a lot of them feel that, oh, it's only preschool, it's only early childhood education. Usme kya padhana hota hai? But we forget the fact that there is so much actually happening in these years, which lays the foundation for those coming years and everything. And I pick up that word from you. They become thinkers. They just don't become like followers, but they start thinking about what is presented in front of them. And that brings me to my last question from the parent group. That is, thank you for all the information. There is a parent in the group who still wishes to know, why should parents go for Cambridge rather than any other curriculum?
I told you
So
that
what will be that
I will give
one
you
one
only
piece
one
of advice
example.
be?
I will give
Yeah.
you one example. Your children are growing in an environment where AI is in play. Okay. As they grow older, AI is going to be their peer group. That's given today. Okay. So what is going to make them different from your AI group? Emotions and the ability to think on your feet. And the ability to think on your feet can only come when you develop the skill of thinking at a very young age. So I would say, if you have to, and you have that opportunity today in your country to take that environment. You don't have to send your children abroad to get that flavor of critical thinking at a young age. You don't have to do. You got that opportunity in your country. And if you have a choice, then think about what kind of skill sets you want your child to have when they go for a job. What is that they would require? Because see, at the end of everything, it's all about college and jobs. It's not about school. School is a stepping stone, but the outcome is always a college and a job. So looking at the scenario of, as you know, researcher says that there are 20 jobs just now which are yet to be created, which your children will apply to. So for those 20 jobs, which you also don't know, what kind of skill set do you need? Do you need content or do you need skill set? That's a question I leave you with to answer. And if you have that answer, then you will know why you should apply to Cambridge early years or Cambridge program in any school.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Gauri. And for all the parents who are in the, I was just going through all the questions in the chat box and ensuring that I have answered it, or I have at least redirected it towards you so that you have answered it. So for parents who still wish to know a lot more about Cambridge, early years and other programs of Cambridge and how it prepares learners for a lifetime opportunity of being a lifelong learner, please visit our website. I have posted the website in the chat box. All the information that you need is available over here. FAQs, questions, links to the questions, everything is put over here. One question, Ms. Gauri, I think I missed out on that question, which was on what is the student strength in your class? There is I think that's a teacher who wishes to know that.
I just want to tell you something. The Cambridge advises small class groups and anything from 20 to 25 per section.
Okay.
Because, you can't deliver such a dynamic curriculum unless it's a small group size.
Okay. And there is a question from one of the parents, which is primarily asking about one of the schools where the school has got Cambridge till grade 3 right now. So an answer from my end is, you please speak to your respective school. Of course, school keeps growing one grade at a time, and that's how your child will go from grade 3 to grade 4 in Cambridge. So you don't have to worry about shifting the curriculum. I'm just going through all the questions in the chat box. I think the questions have been answered to a greater extent. And yeah, so thank you so much for all the wonderful insights you have shared, ma'am. And here we come towards the end of our insightful session. And I would like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to you and all the parents and other audience members in the group today. First and foremost, you were fantastic. All your invaluable knowledge and experiences with us is surely going to help us with understanding Cambridge early years better. Your expertise and dedication in the field of education is truly inspiring. Please keep up with all the great work you have been doing by touching the lives of children. And to the parents who have joined us today, thank you so much for your valuable time and active participation. Your engagement and questions have made this session enriching and meaningful. Your support and involvement in your child's learning and education is crucial to their success. And you being present here today just reminds us of your great efforts. So once again, thank you so much. And we look forward to this continuing journey of engaging with the parent community in the near future. All of you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.